welcome everybody. I'm so glad to see you on a Saturday morning. We've already been quite busy. My name is Holly Holland, and I'm the owner and a master teacher at Holly's Pilates Village. I'm also a Pilates and yoga teacher. And with me today is Sheila Heller, who is one of our Pilates teachers, and she and I and another teacher at the studio specialize in something called Pilates for neurological conditions, which is what we're going to talk about today. I also brought my trusty assistant. This is my husband, Harold Adams, who's over here to videotape, and just keeping everything in the family. I've also brought my ex-husband, John Herschel, so I'm demonstrating it. We're all close in the family here. So please, at any point, if you have questions, but we're going to have a lot of stuff where you can get up and do some things too, in addition to learning about this. So we want this to be fun, because truly, when things are fun, you're more interested in doing them. You want to do them, and we really think about that at the studio a lot. I always think that you have a choice about where you can be and whether you're exercising. We run, and I have worked really hard to create a community where everybody has a place in our studio, every shape, every age, everything. So it's important to me. I've been in too many things over the years where it was kind of the body beautiful look or something, and that nobody else belongs here, and I just don't tolerate that. I'm 65 and proud of it, and I want to let anybody be able to do this work. So you all know too well that Parkinson's is the fastest growing neurological condition in the world, with about 10 million people affected worldwide, and 90,000 additional people are diagnosed with it each year. Although the disease manifests differently in each person, Parkinson's robs people of control slowly over time, with loss of motor skills, balance, sensory conditions, and speech. Additionally, Parkinson's is the only neurological condition that causes rigidity. What do you mean by that? That means when your muscles and joints stiffen involuntarily, and it can occur in your arms, legs, neck, back, and even your facial muscles. But rigidity, unlike spasticity, affects all of the muscles around that joint area, whereas spasticity, it can be triggered into one area, and it creates a mechanism where the body starts to constrict on itself. That happens more with stroke or MS, and that is generally where the brain perceives unsafety, and it reacts to protect. So that is what spasticity involves, but rigidity is a little bit more global. Research shows that Parkinson's responds extremely well to regular exercise. I think that is so exciting, because there is something that you can do. There's a lot you can't control, but there is something you can do. Dr. Jay Alberts, who's the Vice Chair of Innovations in the Neurological Institute at the Cleveland Clinic, says exercise really is medicine for Parkinson's disease. To me, exercise is the one thing that gives some level of power back to the patient. And again, I just love that, because there's so much that is feeling out of control, and let's get what we can control. Many different programs have been developed to help, including many that you all practice through the Neurological Institute. I think it's very exciting what's available here locally, and we want to add to that. Today we're going to talk about a unique exercise program called Neuro Pilates. It's one that we specialize in. My studio is just up the way, so we're very much in St. Matthews, Holly's Pilates Village. It's right off of Breckenridge Lane at Dayton and Meridian. We have a 4,000 square foot studio there with 2 levels, sharing a building with on-street parking, which I brag about all the time, because in St. Matthews, I mean, like off-street parking is a big deal to be able to have that. Let me tell you a little bit about Pilates, because maybe some of you don't know about that. There actually was a man named Joe Pilates, and he emigrated to the U.S. from Germany after World War II. Well, I got to just tell you that Joe really was a showman, and he also manufactured a lot of stuff about it, including stuff that wasn't true. So we we've been kind of filtering that over the years into what actually was true about them. And apparently he was in an internment camp in World War I, and he was kind of a nurse, and he rehabilitated all of these people. Well, we actually think he was a prisoner because he was probably mining the lanes of the ships and stuff in Britain. But so there's a lot of myth and stuff. But his exercise program is a solid thing that he brought with him. He set up a gym on 5th Avenue in New York City, and he was known about town as the guy who could fix injured dancers and athletes. Everybody would say, go see Uncle Joe. But he studied boxing, yoga, Greco-Roman wrestling, and martial arts. He was also asthmatic and very sickly as a child. So a lot of his system of exercise includes focused breathing and deep abdominal work. People came to think of Pilates as the way to develop a strong core, and I think that's typically what it's known for today. But the system really is the most functionally and full body system of exercise that I've ever encountered, and it's the reason that I've devoted my career to this. I was a journalist and an author or book editor for 30 years of my career. I blew out my adrenal system from stress, and I had to build myself back from fibromyalgia, from a whole range of autoimmune issues. I came to yoga, found Pilates, and it changed my life. And that's why I started this business. Every single teacher at my studio has had an illness or some kind of injury that brought them to it, including Sheila. And we all came from other careers. We trained in this method because we saw what it did to change us. And so we worked that. It is a passion for us. It's not just something that we're marketing. So I think that really follows from what Joe did too. It's like he was hurt, he figured out a way to heal himself. It includes strength, flexibility, coordination, spinal decompression, speed, balance, posture, and stamina. One of the funny stories, and this really is true, you see all these pictures, Joe Pilates was 86 when he died, and he would walk up and down 5th Avenue in his tighty-whities, and he would show off, his physique, because that's all he was wearing. He would walk up and down. He liked to go to the Central Park Zoo. He studied animals. Well, it's fascinating because so many of the Pilates exercises are animal movements. There's the elephant, right? There's a lot of different things, and you'll see the shape of animals, because really animals, like children, I think move without thinking. They move with grace and fluidity. And so if you think about all the ways that our human body gets constricted over time, and certainly with illness, it's really a shame that we don't get back to that system. So John and I have a 17, 18-month-old granddaughter now, and just to see her learning to just get up and move, and it's just so fluid and happy, and you fall down and it's okay. But somehow as we get older, we start losing that, and we start constricting that, or we follow our parents who walk like this and suddenly we walk like that, or we carry backpacks that cause us to walk over like this. And so different things create problems that we end up having to address with exercise. One of the things that just astonishes me in terms of decompression, you know that you can literally lose half an inch a height a day just of the forces of gravity, computers, driving, everything. Well, think about that over time, right? If we don't stretch that, if we don't get those elongation exercises, we're continually compressing that, and then women get osteoporosis, men do too. But then you get to that place, and then you get rigidity with Parkinson's, and suddenly that's compounded a lot. So decompression is something that we'll really emphasize a lot as well. The other thing that Joe Pilates was really known for is a Pilates push-up. Now, a lot of men, probably Eric could get down here and he could, I know Harold could, can you just get out here and just, do 20 push-ups. But many men use their anatomical advantage, which is that they don't have bust lines heavy and pulling them forward. And so they've got muscle distribution that's across the chest. So when you see a man doing a push-up, although when you see Pilates push-ups, you won't be able to see it the same. Have you ever been out to the UOFL games, and after every
touchdown, they do the push-ups. I can't watch them. It makes me crazy. And like, because they're just doing this and have no core, except the female soldiers who do that because they have to, right? So he used to challenge all these bodybuilders and weight builders to come out and do 10 Pilates push-ups. He couldn't do it because if you have to engage your core muscles versus just this upper body condition here, they couldn't do it. So that was kind of, he liked to test his methods there. Joel also invented some great equipment that we have at our studio that really helps with the stiffness and postural problems that develop from Parkinson's. The Reformer and the Cadillac, for example, use resistance springs that help you elongate your body, improve your footwork, and open your chest. I used to work with a golf pro who moved from here, but he was a golf pro locally, wonderful guy, and he had Parkinson's, and he would get on the Cadillac, and there's this way that you can sort of stretch out. When he moved to California, he bought a Cadillac just so he could do that every day because it felt so good to his Parkinson's to open up. We use resistance springs to really help us to elongate. The equipment can be used for one-on-one sessions with a coach or with a small group of up to 6 people. But many Pilates exercises can be done anywhere without equipment, and we're going to show you a few of those examples today. Okay, so everybody just get in a comfortable seated position. What I'd like you to do, and you can, if you like standing up, great. If you want to sit down, you can also do that too. Because really, you should be able to do Pilates breathing, abdominal recruitment anywhere you are. Practicing sitting in a doctor's office, waiting for your car at the stoplight, right? There are different ways. But I like to think about it, if you think of your body in space, okay? And like John's position is good there with his feet separated, but I'd like him to sit a little further up on the chair. So everybody come a little bit further forward. And the reason is because if you're scooting back like that, you're really not thinking about your abs, are you? Right? You're kind of just dumping in there. Now, posturally, people have generally 2 positions here. This is me. I call it the cheerleader butt, right? I'm very hypermobile. My joints hang here. You can see my elbows hyperflex, my knees hyperflex. So my belly pooches out here and I have a lot of low back tension. Other people are what I call the slumpers. You're kind of back in here, right? You know this, and you kind of walk around. And so neither one of those is good for your abs. Ideally, we should be in what we call neutral spine, where there's a small space here at your lumbar spine, a small space here at your cervical spine, and into that alignment. Well, that's a hard thing to maintain, but guess what helps? Your core muscles as you engage them. All right, so let's everybody kind of get familiar with because we're all adults here, right? You take your finger there and you can find your pubic bone. I know, nobody's looking. All right, good. All right, and then here's your belly button. We all know where that is? All right, good. Now, I want you to think about that. If you need to physically touch that, sometimes it's really helpful to me. What I'd like you to do is take an inhale and just let everything go. As you exhale, can you start to feel like you're holding in a urine stream? And inhale, let it go. So right at that pelvic area, can you feel like you're just gently lifting, engaging that, just holding that, not feeling like you're holding your breath because you want to do it on your exhale. Inhale, let it go. So exhale, hug it, lift it. Can you bring the pelvic floor up to your belly? Yeah, I love that you brought your hand up because I do the same thing. I kind of need that physical sensation there, right? And then inhale, let it go. As you exhale, can you feel like you're just hugging that up, pelvic floor, zipping up your pants right up to your belly button? Breathe, inhale. Good, did anything tense? How about your shoulders? Yeah, we laugh about it at the studio. We say, okay, let's engage your abs, and everybody goes like this, right? Because we're all in our neck and shoulder. All right, so let's add to that, right? Because you've got abs running here, here, even along the back of your spine. They're called your multifida, all right? And when we are working our core muscles in Pilates, we want all of that supporting us. It's like you stick a piece of chicken and you're gonna shrink wrap it. I have one of those great little sucker up machines that you can put it in the freezer. That's what we want. So let's add to that. So take an inhale. As you exhale, can you pull the pelvic floor up to your belly? And now can you pull the belly back like you're trying to hook a button to your pants? Ooh, doesn't that feel strong? Inhale, let it all go, because you can't hold it forever. Now, does that feel like that's about 30% of your effort? Not 100, not rigid. Because when I first started doing some, exercise years ago, it was all this, hold your breath, clenching. That's not what this is. We have to be able to function, we have to be able to move, we have to be able to do that while we're thinking about our abs. So if we're clenching and holding that, we are not going to be doing our Pilates abs. Let's take it one step further. Take an inhale. As you exhale, can you pull the pelvic floor up? Can you draw the belly button in? And how about wrapping the sides around? Ooh, doesn't that feel snug? Again, like you just had too much cheesecake for dinner last night. A little snug in your pants. Inhale, release. Now, that was pretty challenging, wasn't it? Yeah, and can you imagine when you're trying to do that when you're moving equipment and moving a machine? It's hard, but that's why we practice it. But that's a basic Pilates exercise, okay? Now, let's do one where we're going to work on spinal decompression. Again, sitting is fine here. You might like to stand up. If you need to hold on to a wall or a chair, absolutely fine. All right, so let's feel where your feet are in space. Many people do not feel their feet. They know where they are intellectually, but the cerebellum, the part of your brain that is responsible for coordination, for gait, for a lot of the concentration moves, doesn't always know, okay? One of the things we work on in Pilates, and especially for Neuro Pilates, is proprioception. But we're going to pretend that you can know your feet, because we'll give you some other ways you can help that. All right, now, imagine that your leg is just open. It's a tube, like a big rigatoni, right? Take a breath there. And as you exhale, can you feel like you stepped on a water hose, and all of a sudden you got all this water rushing up, rushing up, rushing up, and it's filling up the tube of your leg until it's plugged into your hip. You feel how strong that is? Feel how that really hugs in your hip? That's something that we call joint centration, hip centration. It's hugged in, right? We want that. That's going to be solid, and that's what is going to help us try to work from that position of stability. All right, now, can we still where that is above? So where are the sit bones, right? These two bony positions right here, they're called your ischial tuberosities. And everybody's got them. So if you kind of reach underneath there, right? Reach in there and see if you can find your sit bones. Now, the reason the sit bones are important, they're a good marker for us, but they're also really helpful for us understanding attachment points, right? Because attachment points, you've got all these little muscles that work all around this area. There's 6 little muscles right around here that are called your hip rotators. Fabulous little muscles that people really need to get familiar with. Anybody ever heard of the piriformis muscle?
Yes.
The one that hurts sciatica? That's one of those down in there. Okay. So from that sit bones, now let's feel where your pelvis is. Many people think this is your hip. It's your pelvis, right here. So can you feel right above that you're stacking and standing there? You're good. Now you're bringing your pelvis right on top of those sit bones. Breathe in. Breathe out. Good. Now let's keep going up the line. Where are your ribs? Oh, mine like to splay. Oh, they just love to just open up there because my shoulders are tight, so that's where I compensate, right? Anybody who's busty like me, you sort of like, oh, you're right in here. Okay, so can we keep marching up? All right, now right here, if you walk down and you feel this flat bone right here, this is called your xiphoid process. It's a really good place for us to feel what we call the T-point, right? So can you draw that, take an inhale, and as you exhale, can you try to bring that in? So always on your exhale. Yeah, everybody's doing a great job with that. Now what happened there? Did everybody's head get a little further back? Yeah, look at John's head is really good. So you're bringing, now can we think about where that head is in space? And how about, let's get another metaphor here because I'm mixing like crazy. I'm going to take a rope and I'm going to actually cinch my spine. I'm going to try to pull that rope up, 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 and release that. Now, just notice where you are in space. Do you feel different? Maybe you don't. It's okay to always say no. But you might just feel like you gained some understanding of how we're trying to decompress, okay? So that's the idea of kind of the Pilates idea, that it builds from a system. I mean, Eric looks amazing there. He kind of does anyway, because but look, I think he really understood how to get more alignment. And it's hard, isn't it? just get that tall. Okay, so now, why is this important? Because again, I talked about the half inch of in your welcome to standard sit. We have a 91-year-old client, you all, who gained half an inch of height last year. Our doctors were so amazed, they called the family and said, what is going on? They said, Pilates twice a week. James is coming, and she didn't grow, she stopped compressing. That's the idea, is that many people as they get older, they actually lose height because they stop coming up to their full position. So it matters a lot. But you have Parkinson's disease, and some of those basic Pilates exercises we just practiced may not be easy for you. So you might, for example, have been trying to think about that rope coming through the top of your head, but because of Parkinson's, there's a little bit of a misfiring of information, and you don't know exactly where your head is relative to your body. Doesn't mean you're stupid. It means the cerebellum, the part of your brain that focuses on coordination and balance and gait, is giving you false information. Or if you can't feel where your feet are in space, how do you step without falling? Much less try to feel as if a water hose is filling you up and you're plugging it into your hips. Well, that's why we need Pilates for neurological conditions. It taps into each person's brain to find the sensory strategies that help you become more stable in movement. And it starts with neuroplasticity, which recognizes that you can build mental muscle by challenging the mind and giving it new experiences. And guess what? This is why Becky and John are here today as our models, because they model this every time they are in the studio. Neuroplasticity builds from mistakes, and I'm saying that with all good love. They laugh, and they're able to laugh when they can't get something right. Right is relative. Right is where you are, and we're trying to help you understand that if you're trying to get the malleable part of your brain to change, you must make a mistake. You have to. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, this is what we know about people with dementia sometimes. I mean, you can be a great pianist, but if that's all you ever do, you let certain neurons stop firing, right? I mean, I really need to go back and take, an algebra class or something, because I was never good at math, and so that would be a really helpful thing for me, or to learn Spanish or something as I'm getting older. Well, they're really good. Every time they come into the studio and they're learning with us, they're laughing. So I really want you all to get comfortable with making mistakes, okay? Critical part of neuroplasticity. I think if you look at this as a different way, is Pilates is all about strength and stability, and Neuro Pilates is a bridge to that for people who have neurological disorders. Proper balance requires the alignment of 2 of your 3 motor control systems. We have 3, the visual or ocular, the vestibular, your inner ear, and proprioception. Where is my body? Where is my hand? Where is my hip? And we have to use the brain to know when we can, with those sensory strategies, to know when it's safe to move. If the brain doesn't have good sensory strategies, or if those senses are sending out false messages about what is balanced, then we can fall or miss a step or become more rigid. So let's look at some sensory strategies that we can add to some Pilates fundamentals. I'm going to have Sheila start to demonstrate a little bit here with the ab series and the hip hinge, if you will. So we were going to go with the hip hinge to sit to stands, and then do the visual target, and then do tongue. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, hi. So Holly already went over with you all on finding your abdominals and being able to work from a stable center. It's super easy for me to drop my keys, my eyes find my keys, my head goes towards my keys, and everything goes here, and all of a sudden my center of gravity is moved, and the sense of where my body is in space is falling forward, and then I'm trying to catch myself in a fall. So one of the things that universally we can take out throughout our whole day is the concept of a hip hinge. So she had mentioned this is pelvis. The hip is the area where the leg goes into the pelvis. That's the hip joint. And a hip hinge is a movement of the hip in that hip joint. So same thing, I drop my keys, I go to pick them up. Instead of moving my pelvis and rounding and leading with my head and losing my sense of balance, can I instead go into a hip hinge, which preserves that? It uses the abdominals and the control that we have with that muscular engagement. So you guys can stay seated if you want to, you can come to standing if you want to, either is okay. But again, the concept, the idea of where you know where your sits bones are, the things that you scrub around on the bleachers and you feel moving around. And if you're standing, great there. But I want you to
sitting, make sure you've got a little space in front of you because you're going to want to get up and down, right?
Yes, eventually, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just give yourself some space. Just spread out a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, look, everybody's coming up. Okay, well, let's go there. So seated is fine if you want to stay there. Standing, I applaud all of you all. But let's just, if you take one foot, and lead that foot up and find that spot where the leg meets into the pelvis. Find that hip and just become familiar with, okay, this is where my hip is. So we're going to find the abdominals. We're going to draw those abdominals in and up to keep them on line for us. And then we're going to load the legs. So I don't want my knees to be, locked out here where I'm jammed up in my joints. I want to find the engagement of the musculature in the legs. So just like that idea of that garden hose filling up, if that didn't work for you, it took me a minute. I like to feel the floor by pressing my feet down into the floor to find my legs. And then at that place where the hip actually exists, we're going to hinge from there. So the sits bones are going to go back behind us. And then we're going to press through the legs and we're going to come right back up. And notice that this area here is not rounding and moving around. I feel connected to the ground. So we're finding that ground. We've got the abdominals here. We go into that hip hinge. And then we press through the floor and we come back up. And it's super easy to get into me fixating on what it is that I'm looking at, my keys or whatever it is, and then I end up losing that. But can we take it another direction? So find something around you that offers you a visual target. Something where you can have another anchor in addition to the floor. And then I want you to take your eyes as you go into that hip hinge with that visual target, as if you were moving towards that visual target in that hip hinge. And now we're pressing through the floor and we're coming away from that target. And again, we're bringing ourselves with that visual target in mind. We're going towards that visual target through that hip hinge. And now we're moving away from that target through that hip hinge. So that is convergence and divergence, and that's part of the ocular that's sending information to the brain about where you are in space and how to move your body from that position. So a sit to stand, which is just a very common in the PT world and in the OT world of all things, and it's a functional movement. We want to be able to sit down. We want to be able to come back up standing, to drive our cars, to use the bathroom, to navigate our world. So let's try first where you all are, if you've got access to your chairs, and if not, make a space for it. And I just want you to practice that idea of the hip hinge, and then we're going to lower towards that chair in that hip hinge. And if you need to sit down, sit it down, and we'll come back up the same way. So I'm going to hip hinge. Now I'm going to take my sit bones even lower, and this is me going into a seated position. Then I'm going to press my legs away and I'm coming back up into a standing position. The last thing to unfold is my hips. My hips come into extension. So we hip hinge, we sit back, and we press through the floor, we come back up, and we come out of that hip hinge. So now go back to that visual target that you had. And notice, if I take my eyes on that visual target, can I go into a hip hinge? Can I lower myself down? Go ahead and have a seat if you want to. And then come stand back up out of that with that visual target. We'll do another one. Find the visual target. Go into your hip hinge. Lower yourself down to seated. Bring yourself back up out of seated with that visual target. Did having a visual target make sense to your brain? Did it make it easier for you? Did it give you some where you just felt like, okay, this is kind of quiet, like this is a different experience? So that is the difference between having some sensory input, giving your brain information to be able to move your body and connect with your body, versus I just need to sit down and I need to put my legs out, or I need to keep my feet turned or whatever. We really don't focus on a lot of motor output. We're really focused more on what is the sensory input that your brain needs to be able to move you well in that joint centricity. Did you want me to go?
Well, so what if you don't have good visual tracking?
Good.
So how about the tongue?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So one of the other systems that we have to be able to communicate with the brain is the inner ear, the vestibular system. So I got car sick always. I still tend to get car sick. My inner ear connection is not terrific. So this has been something that has made sense to my brain and given me a terrific resource when it works. And then there's some days that what I'm doing, it doesn't apply to me at all. It doesn't have any effect at all. That's okay. Barometric pressures affect things. It's a hormone day. I had chocolate last night, whatever. Like, our bodies are different every single day when we're doing something. But if the visual system isn't something that's giving you information, and there's another option, one of the other systems is that inner ear system. And the way that we can access that is by putting some pressure to the top of our head and using the tongue within our head. So whether it's outside or inside, both of them go and affect the inner ear and using the inner ear. So in your sit to stand, did you find, and let's just do one more, and notice as you're sitting down and notice as you're standing up, was there one that was more challenging than the other? Is it more challenging to sit down and not lose control and plop? Or is it more challenging to get started and come out of that hole? If it's more challenging for you to make the standing, I'm gonna offer you a sensory input. And those of you that this doesn't apply to, just give me 1 second and we'll do something for you as well. So for those of you that standing up was more challenging, I want you to have a seat in the chair. And as you're getting ready to stand up, I want you to find your visual target. I want you to bring the tongue to the roof of your mouth as you're standing. So tongue to the roof of the mouth and come up to the visual target. Release the tongue and sit back down. Find the visual target, tongue to the roof of the mouth as you're standing. Release the tongue and sit back down. And again, tongue to the roof of the mouth as you stand up. Release the tongue as you sit back down. What did you notice? Was it helpful? Isn't it crazy?
Wow.
Okay, so for those of you that wasn't your thing, because everybody has a different thing, like we're all great here. So for those of you that the more challenge is in the sitting down, I want you to take your hand and put it on top of your head. And I want you to press your head into your hand and don't let your hand move away from it. So my hand's on my head. I am pressing my hand into my head and my head into my hand. And now I want you to keep that pressure as you sit down. Release the hand, stand back up. We're going to put the hand on top of the head. We're going to press our head into our hand into the head, and we're going to sit down with that same sense of pressure. Release the hand and come back up. We'll do one more. Find a visual target. Head's going into the hand, hands pressing down into the head, and then have that sit down. And then release that hand and come back up. What did you notice? Was that helpful? Did it give you a little bit more information where it's like something changed?
And no is
Absolutely
an answer.
no.
No is an answer to say I didn't feel anything, and that's okay. I mean, I do not have an identified neurological condition. When I did that second issue with just pushing my head into the hand, my knee stopped hurting. Like I noticed right away that I was picking up my glutes and feeling my feet more. It's just that my brain's safety, the cerebellum felt safe in that movement. So that's what we're looking for. We're trying to identify those things that your cerebellum responds to that can help you feel balanced, and it makes a big difference with Parkinson's. All right, so some of the key areas that we want to focus on in our Pilates for Parkinson's are gait training, how to push off your whole foot when you walk. When you walk, for example, you should be swinging your opposite side. A lot of people walk with their same side, right? So that's an important thing. We don't even realize that happens a lot. We work with that. We want to work with stepping
in all directions over uneven surfaces, because that's what you've got to do to get around during the day. Balance control, as Sheila mentioned, practicing picking something up from the floor, being able to walk to the bathroom at night. One of my clients, I love him so dearly, his house is set up, he's got 2 dogs who sleep on the bed, and they're all over, and he's got Parkinson's, and the lights are off, and he's got to figure out how to get to the bathroom. Well, that's a big thing that we focus on in our Pilates sessions, because he's got to figure out how to navigate those spaces. Resistance training. Boxing, I know you all are involved with that a lot. Standing while engaging weights, wall push-ups, dual tasking, and this is something that's especially helpful for Parkinson's, is that when you have 2 systems going, easy things, for example, say you're tossing something up and down and you have to count. It's targeting your brain and it's making it work more efficiently. Flexibility. Head and neck exercises, so working on focused breathing, chest rigidity, which is something that is very specific to Parkinson's, and working on opening your chest. So those are key things that we do. We also do a lot of game strategies because playing relaxes people. Games are fun. Let's be clear. They make you laugh. They don't feel like you're practicing, and they can also help you concentrate. But until you learn to identify your brain's unique sensory strategies, people with Parkinson's, you're here in the audience here, you may not be able to take what we're doing in a clinical setting outside. And it's really only helpful to you if you can take it outside. We don't want you to just be in the Pilates studio, do a thing, and not be able to transfer. It's very critical that you have ways that you can practice this beyond that. Let's show you a great example of what I mean about functional movement. Many of you all know Becky Fangman here. She's one of the most active people in your programming here. She comes to Pilates with us twice a week. She loves to play pickleball, which is awesome. But she's been struggling to be able to call out the score, which is critical, and to keep track of where the various players were moving on the court. Well, Sheila noticed that Becky is left-handed, but she plays with a right-sided paddle. Becky also has very weak visual tracking through her right side. So it was making her coordination in games very more challenging, and you can see why that would be challenging. So Sheila's going to show you with Becky some of the ways they've been working through this. The first one is called VOR, which stands for your vestibular ocular reflex. And it's like you're establishing a communication between the visual system and the vestibular system, so the brain knows what's going on.
Come on up, my friend. So there's more than one way to skin a duck. I can hold my hand up, and I can move my hand, and I can follow it with my eyes. That's if I have that kind of a strength. If I don't have that strength, I can still move my eyes in my head by holding my thumb up and moving my body around it. See how my eyes are still tracking with my thumb. So with Becky, she's left-handed. She's very dominantly left-handed. Her left side is like soldier on a march, and the right side's kind of like, meh, don't have to, because the left side will do it all. So because she holds the paddle in the right hand, we've been working on some visual strategies to strengthen her visual outside of what is dead center in front of her, to make that information make more sense to her body. So I have her bring her right thumb up, since this is the side that we're working on. She finds her thumb with her eyes, and then she starts to turn her body away from her thumb, keeping her eyes on her thumb. And then she comes back. And then we rotate away, eyes stay on the thumb, and then we turn back. And we rotate away, keeping the eyes on the thumb, and then we come back. And then we're going to let that come down. So this is getting her eyes tracking better. It's not just about being able to see the ball to hit the ball, it's giving the brain information about the things communicating well. So we also know that the paddle that she's holding for pickleball, when are you hitting the ball this high? She's hitting the ball down here. So we started having the thumb be down where it would be in her visual field to play pickleball. So not just up here, but down here also, because that's very different. And so she's going to find her thumb. She's going to keep her eyes on her thumb as she turns away from it, and then turns back towards it. And again, turning away from it, and towards it.
I have a question. Why doesn't she just use her left hand to play pickleball?
Well, that's not going to make her visual system stronger to communicate with her brain. And it's any kind of choice. You can rest. Like, there's not a right and a wrong. It's not like there's any kind of a deficiency, like this side doesn't work and so we should use this side. It's how can we make the things that aren't as strong, stronger. So we're not taking anything away from the left side by bringing the right side into a better position of being stronger. We don't want to ignore it. We want the right side to be stronger.
Typically, Parkinson's affects one side of your body or the other. So, does it affect one side of your body?
It seems like it affects each side differently.
Yeah, and we have to remember the body is a whole organism. So I'm right-handed. Yeah, I write with my right hand. I can also write with my left hand, but I am dominantly right-handed. But it all affects the things. If I'm writing on the right side of my desk, I'm curled up and I'm doing this thing. It affects all the ways that I'm turned. If I'm writing with my left hand, I position myself very differently, and it affects the whole of the body. So when you have Parkinson's, when you have anything, if you have a cancer cell that is in one part of the body, the whole body is still the organism. You may be targeting treatment there, but all of the things, the whole body has to incorporate that and deal with it, and you know, the ebb and the flow of things. It's like living in a house with a whole bunch of siblings. You know, you can't not hear the baby cry down the hallway, even though it's not your room and in your space. It affects all of the things. So when we have something that is weak, we can make it stronger, and that will make the whole system stronger. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So with her with the pickleball, one of the things that we started doing in addition to these VORs, these visual exercises, was then we started to use this PD ball. So it's got letters and numbers. It's a great color.
It's called the brain speed ball.
Thank you.
Brain speed.
And so it's just kind of a way to play. So I'm just going to stand here and I'm going to bounce the ball to Becky, and she's going to catch it and send it back. And first we start just by bouncing, because that's pickleball, right? Bounce. And then I'll start tossing it. Yep, take your feet.
Take my feet.
I want you to take your feet with you.
Okay.
Yep. So typically we would do this towards the end of the session when we have practiced moving. And notice that I'm sending the ball where she needs to move to catch it, and she needs to be able to track it. Like, I'm not just tossing it where she is. I'm making her move. Yes. Yes. So if she had a weaker visual system, that would not be easy for her. It would be a whole lot of twisty, folly things, and then the ball's not there. So then the scorekeeping and the multitasking is something else we can layer in. So now I'm going to toss the ball to her and say, catch it, call it, find a letter.
Y.
And then toss it back. And then we'll go again. Catch it, call it.
J.
Yes. So she's tracking and having to find and register and speak, and then hear herself speak. E. Great, Becky. So now we're going to add a name. We're going to add a name. So now we're going to catch it and call it, and then a name that goes with it.
Henry.
Henry. So she found the H, she called Henry.
Okay.
Yep. We'll go again. Catch it, call it, name it.
E. Error.
Louder. Catch it, call it, name it.
T. Tom.
Awesome.
Y. U.
Good. So you guys see how we can just layer the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But the Pilates has been essential for her to find her balance and where her center of gravity is, and how to use that as a strength. In the hip hinge, you don't see her leading with her head to get the ball, because we've been practicing on where are you in space and how can you move your body well. And then we implement the using the neurological techniques to speak to her brain, so that there's this whole pathway of communication going on with her body. And then we can just add the next piece, you know, name it something that starts with an R. We also do math, which I won't ask anybody to do because I'm not sure that I would know if you're right or wrong. It's not my strength either. But thank you, love. Okay. So, yes, ma'am.
You're ours.
Yeah, give her a round of applause.
Now, we've been doing implant payment, but we're told to do with our non-dominant hand.
Uh-huh.
And so how does that play into the role?
It's all part of it, whether it's dominant hand or non-dominant hand. I learned to play soccer barefoot. You know, it's just something that it's another way of learning. You know, we don't want to ignore, it's so human nature to say, that's hard and I don't want to do it and it's easier to do this way. I've got 3 kids, and if I could go back and change anything, the 2 things I would change is, one, I would show up and been more present, and the other would have been, I would have encouraged them to learn things different ways. Because just because I'm right-handed doesn't mean I can't learn something by using my left hand. It just turns on different things in the brain. So it doesn't change any of what we're doing, whether we're right-handed or not. So Becky wears corrective lenses, and she only fairly recently found out that for all of the years she's had correction, they have identified what her dominant eye is incorrectly. So for all these years, she's been wearing corrective lenses that said, oh, you're right eye dominant, and when in fact it's left eye or something to that degree.
I've forgotten.
Yeah, whichever side it is, they've now decided, oops, it's not that. So her brain's kind of like trying to figure out, like, how do we learn and not have so many moving parts? But having those moving parts is part of life. And so it's like, how can we dial it in and find a place where we can go where it's like, okay, this is my center, and here's the things going on around me, and I know where my feet are, or I can't feel my feet, I don't know where my feet are. Does this helpful? Can I find a visual target? And those are skills that you can take. We want you to take that stuff into every day. We're not just asking you to play pickleball for sport, and there's nothing, I love sport. But what we're offering is, what we're sharing is, take your version of what works for you in your body, and then does that help you navigate your world? And that's the passion.
And they should be used to a lot of this, because this is a lot of what we do
Yeah.
in the Rock Steady Boxing.
I surprised myself when first time I did that, which I don't remember how long ago that was. I surprised myself that I was able to do it with my left hand, and I'm nowhere near it.
Yes.
Yeah, we
So
try to force
Becky-
uncomfortability and,
Yes.
and forcing something that's not just natural and just your
Absolutely.
everyday. And then even going back to the eyes, so it even got me thinking, if you do have corrective lenses, maybe you should, if you have Parkinson's, go in more often to check to see if that changes, because where we have gotten people on the right eye machine in optometry offices, people with Parkinson's, across the board, everybody has a tremor in the right eye. And so we want to do more studies on that to see if you can diagnose Parkinson's earlier if you have no symptoms through the eyes.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's fascinating. I do we have a second?
Actually, we should.
Okay, we'll move on. Love that. Would share with that.
So we want to show also some things with gait training. So I'm going to ask John to come up. Now, John has Parkinsonian syndrome. It's kind of some neurological conditions that are set off from a different reason, but he has all of the same issues. It just doesn't progress as rapidly as Parkinson's does. He has not done any of these exercises. He wanted me to tell you that. I know. Okay, so one thing John has had some trouble with is falling, and we've got this granddaughter. Well, John was a marvelous middle school teacher. I said middle school teacher, but English. Okay, so math was not his thing. Sorry for any of my mathematicians out there. We're not trying to denigrate you. We just don't get it. So when John walks, so obviously if we had a bigger surface, go ahead and you were just going to have John walk up and down. You're in the park. You're walking, okay? So John's going through the park, and he loves to watch birds. So the birds are up, and he's always watched birds. He can identify a lot of birds. And what do you know with Parkinson's is that the pacing when you walk.
changes, okay? And so that's a really hard thing to maintain. Well, we have to give some ways to create some dual tasking. These are called boom whackers, okay? Boom whackers are just fun. They make music. You actually can have bands with these things. I want John to use them to count 1, 2, a pacing as he's starting to walk now. All right, so you're just gonna beat them together and
1,
count.
2.
Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and back and forth, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. But look, in addition to not only keeping the pace, but he's also upright. He's a little bit more upright. So just a small little idea of how you can add to a pattern of, so you keep the pacing so that you don't start shuffling, because that's the biggest challenge for him right now, is the shuffling and the falling. All right, so he also is an avid fisherman. He loves to go and he's carrying his stuff. Well, that's uneven surfaces, and that's some of the stuff where John has been falling. So we're gonna do some things to help him with gait with that. So he's not done this before. So I want him to feel free to make mistakes. You're gonna stand out here and face the audience there, sir. All right, now what I'd like you to do is, here's this, sorry, face me, I was mistaken. Okay, right, so I'm gonna just, you're gonna come in here and step to the side, both feet on either, right there, okay. Now what I'd like you to do is, you're gonna have to watch this pole, and I'd like you to step over it. Okay, and then step over it. Good. And then step over it, and step over it. Now moving it. Yeah, good. So now you could have a smaller stride. Doesn't have to be a huge stride, right? But he's having to think about, look at where he's going. Okay, now how about if it's uneven? So now John has to flex at the hip as he's going over. So now he has to think about moving that from the hip, because if he's going to find his fishing pattern, right? So just little things like that can suddenly get his visual system and his sense of proprioception working a little bit more together. Sheila, did you want to do the one with the paper? Yeah.
Those hurdles that you guys were just doing all month. Just
Sorry?
like that. All the hurdles, we do hurdles.
Oh, great.
And so,
great.
but we did,
Yeah.
for this past month, we did hurdles while on your knees.
Yeah. Oh, good for you.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it really uses that hip
let's do
hinge.
one more with John now. What I'd like to do here, this is especially good. So I'm gonna have John, and if, for lack of time, I'm gonna trace his foot for him, but it would be really helpful for him to trace his own foot. All right, so let's put your right foot here. Okay, and now here's your left foot. All right, and we never tell people, like, okay, you got to do it this way. It's just wherever it is. All right. All right. So what I like John to do is look at his target. Place your right foot in the target. Good. Step off, and again, step your right foot in the target, and bring it back. Good. Step your right foot in the target. Okay, now, can you step your right foot in the target? Look at the doorknob over there. Okay, so, yep, okay. Step your right foot in the target. Look at the doorknob over there. With your foot in the target, can you draw your body towards that visual target? So I want you to, you're not actually moving your leg, okay? Remember the hip hinge that she was, okay, so now I want you to move hinge, look towards that visual target. Good, and move yourself back from that visual target. Good, step away. Okay, bring your left foot into that target. Okay, different.
Yeah.
Okay, pause right there. All right, can you squat using a hip hinge? Good. And then can you bring yourself back up? Good job. Keep your foot in that target. Find your visual target, hinge, and then come back up.
Really good, John.
Yeah. Yeah, John, great. One more time. Look at your visual target, hinge, and come back up. Yeah. So just having him do those while he's able to focus his vestibular system and move from that target is really helpful. Okay, thank you very much, John. Excellent job there. All right, great. All right, for our last little bit here, do we have any volunteers who don't mind getting up and down from the floor, or just being on the floor? I'll give you some towels here, but anybody who would like to, we're gonna play a little hockey game. Anybody wanna come play hockey? Great, sir. Come on over. We need one more person. Anybody else? Yay, okay.
I'm awful.
Well, then you don't have to get off the floor. Once you're here, you're here. Yeah. And then,
We can help get you up.
Yeah.
We have pickup techniques.
Yeah, okay. So you're gonna kneel down. I'm just making this because I meant to bring a pad for you. So you're gonna kneel down where those towels are. All right, now what this is really helpful for, so what they're gonna do is they're gonna play hockey. All right, and we might need, you're gonna bring your hands down. Now, we could do this, or we could trace their hand pattern so that they could, work their dominant, non-dominant hands, things that we just talked about. Okay, so our goal here is to not let the goal get between your arms. All right, so what I want, you can't keep changing where your hands are, so that's what we gotta focus on here is, okay, that's why, like where you're, let's make sure, are you right-handed? Let's make you be working this with your left hand, okay. And you gotta keep your non-dominant hand, this shaker, okay? All right, so she's gonna try to slide it in between there. That's a point, okay? All right, you're in charge now. No, you both are gonna do it, back and forth, okay? And you're trying really hard to not let it get.
What's your non-dominant?
No, 1 point for her. Really bring it through.
If you can't win, name your partner.
All right, that's all right.
I can't move my hand.
All right, now allow yourself to move both hands. All right, so you can work on wrist stability for different things. You can work on imprinting that. Okay, so now could she take her hands a little wider? Right, because she's got. Ooh, that makes a hard target if she can go really narrow. All right, let's keep those hands nice and wide. All right, so now let's have you move that you can move both hands, right? And now they're really working with speed.
That hurt.
Oh, she got one. Oh, missed the target. Good. Just a simple little exercise, but it's fun. I mean, it's just a way that you can use these. These are like, thank you all so much. That was great job. We absolutely love these little discs. One of the things that they're so good with is just mobility exercises, using them against the wall. I mean, totally love these. For stretching and getting open through there, just fabulous things that we can do with this. Yeah, we'll wipe those down for you. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Well, you're very well done.
Yeah.
So let's see, let me just sort of kind of wrap this up. The gamification, I mean, obviously is just it's a way that when we structure a class, it's a way to try to get fun into it, because again, if you can laugh, if you can feel like, okay, it's okay to make mistakes, the idea is to improve your stability, your mobility, and your strength. And I know we've run a little bit over here, but just to maybe we'll open it up for questions. Anybody has any questions? Yes.
So what did that help with besides being fun?
Well, it's a great question. It helps with coordination. So if you had to count, you'd have to keep the score. We could work on first with stability, like if we traced your hand pattern, could you keep that hand pattern in there as you're working the other side, right? So that's why I meant with non-dominant. I didn't go through the movement for that. We could make it farther apart. So now you have to work that a little bit more challenging. Okay, you could add a goal to go in. You could, maybe you don't have another partner over there, but maybe you have to slide it over like you're playing, what is that, curling or something. You have to extend it over and hit the yellow dot, or ways that you build on accuracy. So it was just a quick little way to show how you could use those discs to get hand-eye coordination or stability moving around a stable arm. Yep. And it was kind of fun, right? Sitting down on your knees. Yes.
Now, John was using, what you call them, you didn't call them sticks.
Boom whackers. Boom whackers.
So
Yep.
the Parkinson person isn't going to go around the house 1, 2, 1, 2.
Well, in a class situation, if we've got different stations and things like that to do to work on that pattern, you're going to have some of those because it lights up your brain. So yeah, I mean, you can have them. I mean, go out with your grandkids in Seneca Park or something, you know. The idea is kids do use them to make music there. I mean, this is part of what they do. It's just an example of different ways that you can build some energy into the brain through gamification.
And one thing that you can use around the house, it's something that I've used a lot with working kind of one-on-one in home, or if somebody needs it to walk around their house who has trouble walking, is you can use it on your phone, but metronomes. And
Yes.
so you just hear the ticking, and so you can control how fast or how slow. So it can be a tick, 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 or it can be tick, 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 tick. So you can just look up on your phone, you can Google metronome and it'll pop up, or you can download a metronome app on your phone, and so you can literally have that, or you can have it in earpod or headphones. And so if you need it to walk around a store, you can literally use that metronome, that same thing as that, you know, that clicking, that sound. It keeps that brain on pace to.
Yeah, that's really what it's designed to do. But it is secondarily, when the sound is a good system to bring on into your inner ear, it alerts it. So in addition to the counting and to the pacing, it's helping the brain understand what's going on in your body.
And for those that like music, you know, to have a class where we're using the boom whackers and we're establishing a tempo and a response to a tempo, and then you go home and throw some music on when you're doing your cleaning and find the beat, and can you step with the beat, or can we do a thing with that? So we're just laying little pieces that can be touched and retouched and retouched. Not that you have to go buy boom whackers. It's just one of the things that we use to lay some seeds for you to be able to take that into your world, to navigate your world.
Yeah, good clarification. Thank you. Yes.
Do you have a website and all for schedules?
We do. At Holly's Pilates Village, it's pilatesvillage.com. We don't, so we work primarily right now with our clients with Parkinson's privately and semi-privately, but we've been working with the Neuro Institute to see if we can get, with some grants or something, to set up some small group classes. That's our goal. And to see, like, you know, if you come and commit to a 6-week session and then see if how that builds, so we can move from there. Because it is important that we have some time, you know, at least a few sessions to help you identify your neural strategies. Because that is idiosyncratic. It's very unique to you. And so once you know that, and we've got some, then you can go into a group setting and you can, like, okay, now if that was, you're having a hard time pushing that out on your reformer, find your visual focus. Now can you bring whatever your neural strategy is, then you can use that when you get into blocks. So that's the idea, is that we help you identify those things. Or if you always struggle to get up and down from the floor or up and down from the chair, now you're going to remember what is your neural strategy that will help you get there. So that's what we tried, yeah, but if you wanna, let us know if you're interested in more information, you could, sign up there as well, but I think Eric and Erica will be talking some more too about some possibilities for partnership.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet, thanks for asking.
How much are the sessions or classes?
So the private sessions are $90, but they go down depending on the number that you get, and then semi-privates are about half of that, and group classes I think are like $35. So we're again trying to get it to a place where we can get a consistent group, so we can spread that cost out for people. And the reason it's expensive, the equipment is, you'll see, the big equipment is expensive, but also our training is so extensive. Pilates teachers are very different than a lot of folks you'll see around town, and the amount of training that it requires to be what we do, and then the continual training. I mean, we've spent multiple years on top of our years learning additional techniques. So, well, thank you for letting us be here with it. Yeah.